Crawling out of this twisted ghost tale are the horrors of our worst nightmares. A shocking discovery that confirms the night terror of a child, a foul murder, and the vengeful spirit of a terrible man trapped in a rotting corpse. He is the dead traitor of 1633, and he lives among the lichen of the Northeast, the misty coastal forest steeped in history and blood. The setting is Clark's Point in McKeesport. By all appearances, it is the best place in the world to raise a child. A quiet, dead-end road out on a peninsula of meadows and spruce forests, all surrounded by the glittering blue waters of McKees Bay. But for a young child and his family, the scenery only masked a black pit of fear. For the dead traitor had returned from the grave, and his purpose remains most inscrutable. The tale concerns a boy we'll call Tempest, who was 7 years old at the time of the manifestation in July of 1999. On a moonless, windy night, the boy had trouble falling asleep. Barely perceptible below the rustling of the leaves outside his window stirred the sounds of something creeping around the house. A growing feeling of ill-ease and alarm engulfed the boy, who lay wide awake and trembling in his bed under the shadowy eaves of his room. The terrifying apparition appeared in the least expected place. After a long time, Tempest could stand his ordeal no more, and tossing back the covers, he got up, determined to seek solace in his parents' bedroom, located below on the first floor of the house. Their room contains a set of windows on the south side, and these were directly facing the boy as he opened the door and entered. And that was where he saw the ghost hovering in one of the windows. The child stared in a trance of terror at the figure in the window. Chest high outside the glass was an old man. He looked like a person from long ago, with long hair and a straggling gray beard. Except for a dark vest, the man was bare-chested. A terrible thing about the whole apparition was its corpse-like character, for the man was nothing but a rotting cadaver. But that was not the worst. Most fearful of all were the eyes. Unlike the dead body of the specter, its eyes were most damnably alive. That was the appalling thing. They were fierce in the intensity of their life force. The eyes also expressed a most evil nature. The old man's eyes turned and fixed malevolently upon the terrified boy. Try as he might, Tempest could not look away or even close his own eyes. He was frozen in fear. To this day, Tempest shudders violently when he recalls those horrible, unblinking eyes flashing at him from the face of a corpse. While time seemed to stop as the spirit stared at him, Tempest was somehow able to break out of the spell long enough to look away and yell at the top of his lungs. In its sheer intensity, this call for help was unlike any his parents had heard before. Certain features of the incident spurred an investigation, which led to surprising results. The boy's terror was strange because he was wide awake, so his shock hadn't resulted from a nightmare. Also strange was the placement of the figure he had seen. Anyone outside the window would have to be floating in the air to appear chest high. Finally, the child's description of the figure was noteworthy, suggestive of a kind of pirate, but not one depicted in any Hollywood movie. Knowing that Clark's Point has a long history of French and English occupation, Tempest's father, Jason, did some research on the area. This led him to the discovery that it was the site of a trading post established in the 17th century by Richard Vines and 5 other Englishmen. A deadly battle had taken place here with the French, who controlled the region and did not look kindly upon the English incursion. Of the traders, 2 were desperate fellows. Warrants stood for their arrest on charges of assault and murder. The men did not live long enough to go to trial for their crimes. They both died when the French commander, Latour, discovered the trading post in July of 1633. The French were ready for a fight even before they knew that the 2 suspected murderers were working at the post. The rough dwelling stood on a bluff, overlooking the shore with a glimpse between the islands to the open sea. Entering the place, Latour's men apprehended the criminals and shot them on the spot. The other Englishmen departed as hostages of the French, who confiscated the bundles of skins and other goods at the post, valued at £500. Thus ended the short and bloody history of the trading post in McKeesport. The location of the trading post corresponds to an ancient cellar hole still located on the south shores of Clark's Point. And to these ruins Jason went late one day near the end of summer, just after he had learned the terrible history of the place. To get to the ruins, he followed Clark's Point Road all the way up to a trail on the right used by clammers and hikers along Larrabee Cove. Near the beginning of the path, on the left, or the ocean side, are the ruins. Although hidden by shrubs and alders, the gaping hole is plainly evident if one takes the time to look. Oddly enough, a dead spruce tree stands from one of the sides of the cellar hole, and on its sun-bleached branches grows a strange specimen of coastal lichen called Old Man's Beard. Maine's version of Spanish moss, Old Man's beard adds a gloomy and mysterious atmosphere to the forests along the coast. Normally, lichen grows only a few inches, yet the Old Man's beard at the site of the trading post is 2 or 3 times longer than this, draping a whole branch of the tree. To Jason, the long, straggling lichen was certainly reminiscent of the apparition his son had seen. Standing in the half-light near the dismal ruins of the trading post, Jason could not help but wondering if that apparition was the spirit of one of the dead traders. Certainly, everything pointed to that conclusion, including the appearance of the specter, its evil character, and even the time of year. But why did it show up half a mile away at Tempest's house and not here? The answer may lie in the time Tempest had spent at the site of the trading post earlier that summer, when he played Shadow with his older brother, who had received a metal detector for his birthday. In their travels over Clark's Point, combing the beaches, they searched around the old cellar hole. Perhaps the dead trader is a spirit that follows some people home, especially if they spend too much time at the site of his death. At any rate, it seemed like Tempest had woken something up, the vengeful spirit of the dead trader. There will always be unresolved questions, Jason later stated. Since 2 Englishmen died at the trading post, why did Tempest see only one man? And why was it that the ghost chose to appear as a rotting corpse with living eyes? Any answers to Jason's questions are speculative at best, but one possibility, which did not occur to him at the time, points to the most disturbing aspect of this whole affair. It concerns the mechanics of digging a grave in the dense forest and rocky grounds of Machiasport. The French were likely to be in a great hurry to leave with their hostages, and did not want to waste time breaking new ground. The only reasonable place of burial was the actual cellar of the trading post. Unthinkable as it may be, the possibility exists that one of the men was still alive when buried there. This alone might explain why only one apparition appeared to Tempest. Perhaps the ghost took the form of a rotting corpse with living eyes to signify the horror of a man who was still alive as the clods of dirt fell upon his bloody face and opened eyes. No one will ever know the depths of true horror lurking unseen along the maze-like coastline of down East Maine. But the spirit of the dead trader of 1633 stands out as an apparition to avoid at all costs. The ghost of this murderous man haunts the very clay in the cellar hole, where the mossy old man's beard is reflected on black standing waters. One must exercise extreme caution around the cellar hole, as it could be a dangerous pit that fills with water at certain times of the year. Even more risky may be the length of time spent at the place. Be careful not to wake up this vengeful spirit, causing it to appear outside your window in the dead of some windy night. Hey guys, Reaper here. I just wanted to thank you all for either watching or listening, whether you're on YouTube or Spotify. This story was brought to you from Ghosts of Acadia, written by Marcus Labrizzi and published by Down East Books. I wanted to give both of them a huge thank you and a huge shout out for letting me bring this book to you guys, whether it's in audio form on Spotify or in video form on YouTube. If you want to check out the book for yourself, I will leave a link down below in the description in both Spotify and on YouTube, so you can go check out the book for yourself and support the original author and original publisher. New story coming out tomorrow night. And until then, remember, sleep well, my friends.